Nottingham Forest just absolutely demolished Brighton. 7-0. I mean 7-0. Brighton did not spend over 250 million this season to be smashed 7-0 by Nottingham Forest. As fantastic of a season Nottingham Forest having under Nuno, Espirito, Santos, you've heard all about that. Everyone's talking about Nottingham Forest and Chris Wood and Anthony Elanga and Morgan Gibbs-White. But today I want to take a stronger look at Brighton, because these poor results haven't just come out of nowhere. Since the 29th of November, Brighton have only recorded 2 league wins, drawing 6 times, and some of those drop points include the likes of Southampton at home, Leicester City away, Everton at home, Brentford at home and more. Something is going wrong for Fabian Hürzeler's Brighton. So in today's video I'll be taking a look at that Nottingham Forest performance, along with how they tactically set up, what's going wrong, the issues Hürzeler has and where Brighton finish come the end of May. Let's go. Firstly, let's establish the obvious. Brighton are suffering with a lot of injuries at the moment. Some squad players, some very key players, which is understandable. It hurts them, of course, but I'm not sure that excuses the performances we've been seeing as of late and throughout the season. As well as Brighton have played at times this season, a fair few encounters now have been decided and edged via individual quality and luck. Now, it's always a decent sign in football that you win when you don't play well, and that you still manage that win. But you can't ride on that fortune forever, and Brighton have for a while. But since their 2-1 win away at Bournemouth, there's no hiding from how poor they've been. Tactically this season they've set up in a 4-2-3-1 that altered to a 4-1-4-1 against Forest, which as we found out was disastrous. They maintain an overall 2-4-4 shape when playing out from the back and when with the ball high, but also a 4-4-2 out of possession. It's consistent. Constant rotations apply between the fullbacks, forwards and wingers as they create overloading triangles on each side. Off the ball is a high line, and that high line has been getting exposed. I think with their system it relies a lot on their attacking fluidity, the quick combinations, the passes in behind to the wingers, the crosses, etc, etc. When they struggle to create chances and become more wasteful with the ball, a simple turnover leaves them exposed quickly when done right. It's a risky style and structure. The problem I have with it too is that the centre-backs stay put. A lot of teams that play high lines, when they lose the ball, the centre-backs are to pounce aggressively whenever a forward player gets the ball so they can eliminate the transition and win back the ball. But Hürzeler's Brighton don't. Now the counter to all of this is that you run an even bigger risk if the centre-back misses out and doesn't win the ball, which, yes, that's a possibility of course. But it also gives the opposition an easy and accessible forward pass and transition. It allows them to escape from deep, push up the pitch and run it forwards, which is just as dangerous because the Premier League has got a lot of quality to punish you. Nottingham Forest showcased that in particular. Another tactical pattern that teams are doing to Brighton is to use their central players out of possession to surround their defensive midfielder, but without, of course, giving space to their forwards. Everton did this, Leicester did this, Nottingham Forest did this. They did this to Belabour a lot because, as we know, he is monstrous in taking it forwards and escaping tight spaces. So to remove that as a passing option altogether was effective. So let's take a look at the game where all of this was on show for everyone to see. And I think if this was going to happen, it was going to happen against Nottingham Forest, because with Bournemouth they're probably the most ruthless teams in the league. Now at the City Ground, this is how they lined up. As you can see, a strange looking midfield with Hinshelwood all by himself there at defensive midfield, while Rutter and João Pedro are those 2 higher 8s. Forest altered to a 3-5-2, Elanga and Wood up top with Morato, Murillo and Milenkovic at the back. Brighton pressed in their 4-4-2 structure whilst they maintained their 4-1-4-1 approach, where it became a 2-3-5 when high. When Brighton pressed, Matoma and Minter would press the wide centre-backs, however this would lead to direct space for the wing-backs as free passing options. Now with Forest, their structure was brilliant. Williams pushed right up as Anya played exactly how he did at fullback in a back 4, despite being in a back 5. It wasn't too different of a shape on the ball as normal, but just more cautious and protected in transition. The first 10 minutes it was competitive. Brighton knocked the ball round and looked genuinely okay. Rotations were occurring on that left flank, creating those triangles as they looked to break Forest down, except they couldn't. They were wasteful. They lacked ideas and fluidity as the passing combos just weren't there, which would lead to, as you guessed, turnovers. In transition, Forest are probably the best side in the league, and to add to that, defensively, the third best side in the league. Brighton's worst nightmare. Elanga was causing a lot of damage. He drifted out wide a lot, but because the centre-backs and defensive midfielder weren't following him, this meant he could drop deep, receive the ball freely, and then drive into all the space he wanted. Fast. Faster than Van Heck or Veltman or Dunk could have moved. Brighton had leaking holes in their team that Forest were going to cause damage to. They did try and physically outmatch and outnumber Chris Wood to stop his influence, but as you could probably guess by the hat-trick, that didn't quite work. The first goal came from Morato finding Elanga unmarked in space. Lamptey coming to press Elanga, where Gibbs White would then move into the space Lamptey leaves behind. Now there's a clear pass here that Elanga tries to access, but it gets blocked, so it takes Danilo from deep to find it through. There is plenty of time here for Matoma to see what's going on, to just jump into that space where Gibbs White isn't in acres of space, but no, he doesn't commit to the same rotations unless they're going forward, and leaves Gibbs White free. This may be harsh and you may disagree that Matoma should be going back. That's fair enough, that's okay. Because Lamptey was standing still after he blocked the pass. He knows he's out of position. Surely he knows Gibbs White was there, as he wouldn't have gone to press Elanga. So overall this is just poor all round from Brighton. Too easy. That pass from Morato found to Elanga on the first goal was happening all to the first 45. The Forest centre-backs were finding easy passes to Gibbs White, Anderson, Elanga on numerous occasions as they were unmarked, mainly because of Hurzeler's structure. João Pedro and Rutter are attacking players and Wood was all by himself in transition, with Gibbs White and Anderson just running at him. Nuno tactically outdid Brighton, but it was the German manager's setup that led to Brighton's failure. When Brighton did have chances, as I mentioned, they were wasteful, but the amount of numbers Forest got back in defensive transition was absolutely incredible. You can see here, 8 players get back in just a couple of seconds, eliminating any Brighton counter-attack. It gave them no chance. They were machines. Anderson at times would look to attack that left half space that would attract Veltman to come mark him, leaving acres of space for Williams or Wood to operate. And Veltman had to come and deal with Anderson because Wood was off elsewhere. More proof that the 4-1-4-1 wasn't working. The second goal comes from a corner where Gibbs White attacks the near post and heads it well with power. But it's poor from Brighton. Lamptey's the only one contesting and close by, and he's being blocked off by a 6'4" Morato. It's just poor. And talking of poor, a lot of Brighton players were equally as bad, including Lewis Dunk, but Lamptey really struggled out there physically, and I almost felt sorry for him at times. Before you know it, the third goal comes and they attack Lamptey's side again. Brighton are down to 10 in this moment, Matoma going off injured, meaning there's a huge gap. This allows Ange to push forward, who then takes Lamptey away from Elanga, who again is free in space and allowed to do the rest. Forest were very clinical, of course, but Brighton was still very poor, also passive as Forest just carved right open. It's clear they missed Baleba, but to play that midfield free was criminal against a team who scored 10 goals in their last 3 games. A double pivot may have been more suitable because Forest were playing around them so easily. Second half arrives and Brighton make multiple changes. Gomez, Adringa, O'Reilly, yet the midfield structure was still the same. Still there for Forest to expose on the break. I mean, they scored 4 more goals. It's clear that none of it worked. The start of the second half was much better, mainly because they're 3-0 down, they need to hit back. But Forest could take it. They limited Brighton's wide players much better the second half and absorbed the pressure just fine. Their backline is of course rock solid, and Brighton were not breaking it down. However, their defence was going to be broken down again. The defence is overwhelmed. They couldn't handle the fast, intense chaos Nuno's team were pouring at them. Elanga drops in deep, O'Reilly or Dunk weren't looking to pounce, leaving him to carry it forwards without too much fuss before placing a low cross into Wood. Dunk somehow managed to not get a block again, but this is just too easy. The fifth goal then comes and it's a stupid penalty to give away, and it's about the only time Lamptey actually won a physical battle all game long. At this point, heads were gone and complacency was creeping in. Forest could smell Brighton are all over the place. The sixth goal comes with O'Reilly struggling to keep the ball, and as you can see, the rest is just all very scrappy. Then the seventh hits, Verbruggen gives it straight to Jota, gifting him a goal completely. At this level, this was all unacceptable. Forest are incredibly clinical, as I said. 7 goals from 10 shots on target is brilliant. But Hurzeler for me needs to do better. Injuries are difficult, but you adapt, you tweak your system, you find solutions, else you won't survive in Premier League football. Of course, when you look at Forest, they lost 5-0 last week. Nuno changed the shape, changed the structure a little bit, and found a good solution. They won 7-0, it was a pretty good solution. But for a short summary of that Forest game, Hinshelwood was left for dead against Gibbs, White and Anderson. Dunk and Van Heck couldn't handle Wood and Elanga, whilst Forest were very clinical, giving Hurzeler a very alarming wake-up call that was much needed. Personally, I'm not writing the manager off. Brighton are in a difficult moment where the players have no confidence, where they're suffering with injuries. He's a very young coach in his first season of Premier League football. He will learn, it's okay, he's a great coach, but another repeat of that display against Forest, against Bournemouth in a few weeks, then it'll be another uncomfortable scoreline. As simple as that. In terms of the rest of the season for Brighton, if they get players back from injury, of course they'll improve, but there's still issues. Welbeck is the only number 9 at the club, and he's 34 now. As great of a player he is, you can't pour your reliance all on him up top. Physically, that's a big no-no. Defensively, I think Dunk has kind of had his time now as a starter and his minutes should be more managed, but I think a 9th to 13th place finish sadly sounds about right. It's not what Brighton fans would have wanted at the start of the season, but right now there's just so much better teams than them, and it's hard to look at them with too much optimism. Hurzeler needs to find a structure and a solution within his system that stabilises his defence. It's as simple as that. Else, they'll keep conceding goals and they'll keep losing games. Thank you guys for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to smash a like and subscribe to the channel. Check out any other videos you may enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.